Welcome back to episode 3 of Making Waves. I'm Andi. I use she, her pronouns.
Oh, I'm Jonathan. I use he, him, his pronouns.
I'm Andreea. I use she, her, hers pronouns.
I'm Dianna. I use she, her pronouns.
Sweet. So this episode we're going to be talking about whitewashing. And for those who don't know, I got this definition from Urban Dictionary. It's someone who is looked as leaving behind or neglecting their culture and assimilating to a white Western culture. It's been kind of used to describe like first or second generation immigrants who don't really act like their parents' culture, or they're kind of losing some of their like original culture and things like that. But I guess for like me personally, like I feel hella whitewashed. I don't like spicy food. I don't speak Vietnamese that great. And so yeah, I just thought it was an interesting conversation because I think a lot of the APCC staff also kind of feel the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So have you guys ever been described as whitewashed? If so, who described you and why?
My own parents described me as whitewashed, honestly. Yeah, I think for a lot of us, like, language is a sore spot. Like, if we don't speak the language that our parents speak, there's, like, a lot of complexities with that, like, not being able to, like, fully communicate to your best ability to your parents and then have, like, that strong relationship, or even, like, to your extended family who may also speak that language. And then, like, the pressure of, like, wanting to also, like, keep, like, carry on culture to, like, your own family if you want to have kids in the future is like something that like dooms on my mind a lot. It's like, wow, not only am I whitewashed, my kids are going to be super whitewashed too. So it's just like a lot of like pressure that like carries generationally through.
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of me, again, yeah, definitely it would have to be the language. Like, as much as I wanted to, I didn't catch on the language, and I feel like it is a huge barrier. I mean, I can understand because to an extent, because my parents do speak it at home and everything, but they didn't really were strict about like speaking it to me and making sure I learned the language. And so I wouldn't consider that I am whitewashed, especially since I grew up with a lot of Filipinos within the community, so it's like it wasn't I didn't feel too isolated. But I think the most Americanized I felt was when I went back to the Philippines, because it's just so weird. It's so confusing because I look really, really Filipino. And so I go there and I walk around, and the locals expect me to like understand and know what they're saying, because like I look the part. But then the moment they open their mouths and I'm like and I just don't know what to say, or like I couldn't catch everything that they're saying. And then my English comes out, and they hear that I have such a fluent accent in English, or like my English is fluent. Like that's kind of where it gets weird. And so like I feel like I can't. I feel so like I wish I could like communicate and really learn knew the language, so that it would be much easier. So I didn't have to feel this weird or awkward, or be in that awkward position.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the language would be the biggest thing for me too.
I like how when you mentioned that you were talking about your experience, you switched from whitewash to Americanized. Because I'm obviously white, but I was born in a different country. I grew up with two different cultures, American culture, Romanian culture. So for me, it's not whitewashed. I think the idea of whitewashed is more Americanized. So I don't feel like I'm Americanized because I still go along with like a lot of other traditions and like cultural things that Romanian culture does. And I still speak the language. I try to practice it out of fear that I will be more Americanized by losing my language. But I can definitely see like how when you go to the Philippines and like people are able to pick you out and be like, you're not fully Filipino, like you're different, you're like you grew up somewhere else. Is the similar thing for me when I go to Romania. If I just start talking in Romanian, my Romanian isn't like perfect, so they can hear that like I'm not fully, like, I didn't grow up in Romania my whole life. I didn't, I'm not raised in just a Romanian culture, so I'm either able to be picked out by that, or like picked out because I wear different clothes, or picked out because I like to behave a different way. So yeah,
it's just like kind of scary how much like intimacy and like closeness to our culture can like feel lost in like translation.
Yeah.
It's like a scary feeling.
Do you guys feel guilty for like becoming like Americanized, or like, I mean, like in some ways you can't really like avoid it because you are living here, but like where do you think that guilt comes from, and like I guess is it a really bad thing, or like a question?
I guess the closest thing I can think of is, I guess I personally wouldn't say I feel guilty, because I feel like at least I grew up enough of like knowing the culture, and well, besides the language part, but like everything else, I think my parents did a really good job, and like just where I was raised also, like it was much easier for me to like still maintain the culture and everything. But I think the part where I will feel guilty, or like does come up, is like if I ever do have kids, I feel like I personally right now, or like how I am, wouldn't be sufficient enough to make sure I translate enough of the culture to them, especially the language part, because I can't teach it to them. And so that's where I feel guilty, where like, oh, I don't know enough about my culture, or like I can't speak it, so then like I'm kind of scared where like I won't be able to like, you know, have my kids learn that part of the culture also, or they'll get lost in it too and become even more Americanized to like the point where I guess like they lose the culture as well too. And so that's kind of where I feel guilty about, you know.
Yeah, like I guess like because I don't know the language, there's like a lot of like traditional things that I don't know why we do, but like I know we do it, but I will still like pass it on, like, you know, with the red envelope on like Lunar New Year. I don't know why we use the $2 bill. I've been like, I just don't know. Like I just don't know why. It just seems like everyone uses the $2 bill. But yeah, I don't know why. Like I have this pressure to feel like I need to keep pushing the culture, even though I'm not super like, I don't super identify with it, like, you know, but it's still kind of like a weird guilt. I don't know where it comes from, I guess, like, and like even like my mom doesn't even seem to be like that upset about it, or yeah,
it just like it just sucks that we're burdened with it in the first place, because I think this is like a concept I'm like so pretentious an idea that I like mentioned like during our season 1 podcast. It's like I'd love to like just exist. It's just like so difficult to have the burden of like being a kid and then trying to assimilate into like an American school where everything put on you is put forth so that you do assimilate and become as American as possible, and then through that you get the burden of also like needing to catch up and like keep with your culture after like all of that has become like more American, and then it's just like a weird burden on like either side. It's just difficult to like carry both.
Yeah.
I have nothing to add. I agree with all of these experiences. I've also felt these things too.
Where do you think you want to like draw the line on like maintaining tradition, but then like kind of creating your own, or like adapting to like the new environment?
It's like that mad in Chinese thing that like you mentioned before, Andi, where like there's a lot of like pieces of our culture that I'm like not proud of, and a lot of mentalities that I love to just get rid of, and there's like a few like American things that I do prefer over like a few of the Asian things that I'm used to, but it's like hard like trying to like find like what you want to take, and like am I even right to like pick and choose what I want from my own culture, or like how do you navigate that exactly?
Well, I think the thing with that is like, am I right to choose what I want from my own culture? The thing is, you grew up with two cultures, right? So you grew up with this culture in your household, but you also grew up with an American culture. Both of them are your cultures, so it's not necessarily is it right or wrong to choose the culture that your family came with that then gave to you, or that you also grew up with alongside with this culture that your family is giving you. Since they're both yours, you're mixing. It's basically like because even for me, I feel like I'm mixing and making my own culture, Romanian American culture, because that's what it is. For you, it would be an American Vietnamese culture. For you, it would be an American Filipino culture. For you, the same. And so it would be a thing of true. You have a mix. Your culture is no longer one or the other, it's both. So whatever experience you've had, what you like and dislike, you can choose what you want to carry on into the next generation for their mixed culture, I feel.
I really like that.
Yeah.
Like that, now that you brought it up. That's, yeah, like just making it your own culture. Like you don't technically get to, like,
Right.
I mean, picking and choosing, because it's, it can't be so subjugated to like yeah, individual like parts of that, because you just inevitably just make it your own. So and funny that you mentioned that too, because I think it like, I guess growing up, it's kind of something like that too, when for my experience, because again, I come from a Filipino background, but yet I grew up in Hawaii, and Hawaii is also a different culture. We have our own different like lives, or like the Hawaiian lifestyle, different values is also very different, and we have a mix of like different like ethnicities too, and the fact that we all just combine to like one culture, which is like this local culture that we have, like regardless of like the different ethnicities that we have here in Hawaii, like the usual, everybody takes their shoes off, like sharing food with our neighbors too. Like whenever we cook, we give it to like our neighbors just as like a formality, or just, you know, a sense of like family. And yeah, just all of these things just mix into one, like it's just we make it into our own culture too. And so if it were to be picking and choosing of like from your culture, it would definitely just be getting rid of the toxic ones. Easily enough, like, you know, we don't need to be like the gossip, we don't need that anymore from like,
exactly.
I guess for like full context on like what Diana said,
Yeah, I
it
was
was
about
like,
to
it's
mention
like,
that.
Diana and I were driving in the car and then panicking, and because we hate it. But like, I don't know how to like better like describe it. It's like it's just like mad in Asian, or like mad in Chinese. It's like literally my mom could explain to me like why she's mad at someone, you know what I mean? And this is like, clearly like they disrespected when they said this and that, and then when you did this, you clearly like indicated that you hated this person. It's usually that's usually like the context of the conversation, or like maybe an aunt is telling me about this, or like, and like no matter how many times you explain it to me, I will not understand why you're
like,
mad. So
it's
it
like
feels
when,
like a different barrier. I don't know, but
it's like when you notice that your relatives are like angry at each other, or like have beef, but it's like so specific to something in the culture that you just don't understand like why it's even relevant. That's what mad in Asian is, or
like mad
in Chinese.
Like I'll nod and be like, yeah, like that sounds like you're mad. Like it's just like I won't really quite understand why. Yeah, I don't know. Do you feel like it's like kind of like inedible? Like, oh, I'm just, like, you know, I'm gonna be whitewashed, my kids are gonna be whitewashed, and then their kids are gonna be like whitewashed squared, like, or like Americanized, like, or hella Americanized, or like, you know what I mean? Like some like a part of it feels like inedible, but like,
well, especially since what I've noticed, and this irks me so much, is that America does not make it like necessary for you to learn a second language. Like even in high, like they don't even make it necessary in middle schools. In high schools, most high schools is just like Spanish and that's it. And then once you get to college, it's not necessary, versus so many other different countries make it necessary from when they're little. You're going to learn this language, then you're going to perfect it as you're going up higher into the education system.
True,
but you're also learning this
Yeah.
language, and you're also learning this language. And so many other countries are so caught up, not only do the kids know their native language, but they've also learned all these other languages, and they have so many tools, and they can connect to so many cultures and stuff. And to hear people, I mean, I'm not trying to bash on people who have immigrant parents and they're first generation or even like second generation or whatever growing up here, but they're losing their culture and their language, I think, also because so many immigrant parents, when they come here, they think the only way you can succeed here is to become American. So my kid doesn't need to know the language. My kid is going to become as American as possible so they can succeed. And so I think that's why so many people are losing, because also, like losing in touch with like their language or their culture or whatever, because Americans don't put that pressure, not that pressure, but that value on the fact that you should hold on to your culture, you should learn about other people's cultures, you should learn these languages too. Sorry, that was my rant, but I think that's a big problem as to like that connects to this.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten like really like guilt trippy responses from like boomer white people. Like I like especially like serving them. They're just like, man, that's so sad. That's so sad that you don't know your grandma's recipe. And I'm like, have you met her? She's like a demon. Like literally no one's gonna learn it. Or they're just kind of like, man, that's like, you know, like, of course you're gonna lose some of it, but you should really like go back and like learn about everything, or like, you know what I mean, try to get re-in-touched and like all this stuff. And like, I don't know why, I just kind of just feel like I'm like, why you gotta like guilt trip me, I guess, or like I feel like you're trying to like put this like pressure on me because like I'm not, because I'm clearly not white. Like it's like, you know, like especially like when I was serving in like a really like predominantly like white wealthy neighborhood, they're kind of almost like, do you want to pay for my trip to Vietnam? Because like you could leave that in the tip, like the ticket, but I don't know. I mean, like, it's like they don't, it's kind of weird. It's like they want me to learn about my culture, but they don't really want their kid to learn about my culture. You know what I mean? Like, it's like this weird like pressure they're putting on like me, but they're like, oh, but we don't need to do anything about it.
Like, you are not Asian enough. You need to become more Asian, because that's in my head. You look Asian, you have to be Asian. But I don't have to make an effort to learn about you.
When I grow up, I hope I'm Asian. Like, but like, I don't know. Like, it's like weird because it's just like it's like they don't seem to like want to put that pressure on their kids, or like they're like, or they don't want that in our school system to like learn about, like, especially like, you know, in Portland there's a huge like Vietnamese population, and I don't know, it's just odd, like, at least I know I've heard like some weird comments like, oh, like, did you hear like the schools are now teaching like Chinese, like as if like China is gonna take over the world or something. Like, it used to be like Japanese, now it's Chinese, and I'm like, I don't know what you want me to say to that, and I don't like your tone of voice. So
they make it sound exotic too, like it has Chinese, or this school has Japanese, or this school has whatever. And it's like any other language other than English seems so, and now Spanish, because Spanish has been more like normalized now, but other than those two languages, everyone's like, that's such an exotic language, that's such a foreign language. When like, it's so, it should be so normal here.
Yeah. I guess we kind of already like answered this question, but like in what ways do you feel like more connected to your parents because you speak their like native language? My mom says it's kind of a blessing that I don't know Vietnamese, because like because like all I really know of my grandparents is that they love me, they give me money, and then they feed me, and then that they love me, and that's really like about it. And but like I don't hear about like they're kind of like they're crazy, like, or like I know what my aunt's being angry about something, but I don't really quite understand what she's saying. And my mom's like my mom is just kind of like, thank God. Like, it's super annoying, but which is kind of,
For me personally, it makes, sorry for like sad person hour, but like it kind of makes me, I feel like everything I mention is sad, I'm so sorry, but like it feels, sometimes it makes me sad that like, it's like I feel this way about my grandparents, where I'm like, I'm sad I don't really know how complex you actually are. Where like I feel the same way. It's like, I know they like me, they love me, like they feed me and stuff, but it's like I wish I really like knew them. It's like even hard to imagine them just doing like mundane like day-to-life activities, or like them being a child at one point, or like growing up. It's like there's so much there, and like you're really complex, but it's like it's hard for me to get to know that. And like I feel that way about my parents too sometimes. It's like there's so much there, but I like can't quite get to it just because we just don't really speak too much of the same language anymore. Yeah.
That is exactly like me also. I think, because of that language barrier, like, again, I know that they do love me and all of these things too, but I think with my mom, she's very good with English, so I think it's easier for me to connect with her, and like, she's used to like the Americanized like culture too, and so she's like she gets everything, so it's easy for me to talk with her and stuff. But with my dad, it's a little bit different. Like, he speaks English and everything too, but it's like very, very choppy still. And so like it's hard to like I've never had like an intimate conversation with him before at all because of that. Like, it's hard to like convey specific feelings, or like, you know, if I tell him a word, he's not gonna know, like, if it's like what I'm saying to him. So like that's kind of like one of my biggest goals, is to like, for me, is to like really like be able to speak that language, just so I could talk to him too. But I think it is like one of those things where like it just makes it hard to like connect with you know, my parents and my extended family as well.
Yeah, like I grew up with my grandparents, and like it's weird because like I have so many aunts and uncles of like different ages, you know, so some of them speak like Vietnamese really well, some of them came to like the US like at a really young age, so their Vietnamese isn't that great. They like always told me like I'm gonna regret it, like not trying harder to like learn the language, and like even though I knew I would, like some reason like me as a kid just really struggled learning, like going to Vietnamese school. And it's like kind of, I don't know, I feel guilty like not knowing them as well as I should, cause especially that I grew up with them. And like I feel like there's like some aspects of like my personality they don't really know either, because like I can't communicate that to them, or like I don't know how better to like describe it, but
I have something like on the contrast of that. So like for me, like how you said your mom said that it's a blessing you don't know Vietnamese. For me, my parents said it's a blessing that I know Romanian. And I think it's great because I was able to communicate with my grandparents while they were still alive. I was able to understand them, talk to them. Otherwise, it would have like been really awkward, I think, whenever I went to go visit them. But I think that I see lots of... I'm speaking on behalf of other generations because I wasn't born here. So I still got that kind of like advantage that I was born somewhere else in my own country and came here, so I brought over all these things with me. But for those who like are even born here, in my opinion, I think it's really sad. I've seen lots of kids that barely know any Romanian. They speak to their parents in English, and their parents have to learn English to speak back to them. I've even heard of kids that said, I don't want to speak Romanian, I don't want to eat Romanian food, I don't want to be Romanian. Like, I want to be American. And it makes me sad because, again, how the whole thing of if you're a more American, you can succeed here. I feel like that's part of the thing that they're seeing here. I think it's also the parents feel so detached from their kids, and they feel like they don't understand their kids because here they are coming with the Romanian culture. And I understand what it's like to be Romanian. I'm trying to understand this American culture, whereas my kid wants nothing to do with anything that's about me and that should be about them. And now they have to make more of an effort to understand this new culture that all of a sudden has like kind of washed their kids like brain, like just totally cleaned it and like, this is how you're going to be now. So I think with my kids, whether I have kids that are fully Romanian or I have kids that are half Romanian, half something else, I am going to beat my ass until I learn my partner's language and my partner learns my language and my kids learn both languages, because I'm not trying to bash on the people who don't know their language or don't know their culture. That has a whole bunch of factors that have brought in the results of that. But I really just want my kids to understand and like know their culture, their language, and carry that on, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, my mom jokes about it. I think it's her way of coping with the fact of like, she gave up. like let's be real, she's like given up trying to like she can't even like talk shit to me like at like the supermarket about someone anymore because I don't understand it in the like sneaky sort of way. But
that's what I love though, is I can, if I'm in public with someone who understands Romanian and something happens, I'm like, oh my god, did you see so and so, or did you see that happen? And they can understand me instead of like saying it in English and then that person might hear me.
Pretty fun, actually. I do enjoy it also.
Yeah, I very much enjoy that aspect, especially with my partner. I'm just like, did you see that?
Dude, like so many, like my coworker, when I worked at like the Vietnamese restaurant, he asked me, he's like, so how do you like talk shit with Dakota? And I was like, I was just like, we talk about it in a car after we remember afterwards.
That's what I have to do too.
We don't do the live reaction. Like, we don't see your live reaction when something stupid happened, or I don't know. But
it's scary when it backfires on you, though. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I've like said so many
know?
things in like Chinese to my partner and my parents, and then like you realize that like they actually understand you sometimes, and it's like
they turn around and they're like, "What did you say?"
it's like time to leave.
I guess like with like what you were saying, Andreea, when like they're gonna make sure your kids like learn the culture, you know what I mean? Like I don't know, I feel like your kid, like if your kid is like gonna be like half Romanian and half Nepalese, and then like American on top of that, they're just gonna be like trifecta diversity, like super like ultra culturally competent in every way.
Well, because we talked about earlier, and also Dianna mentioned, there's that pressure of learning two different cultures. I don't want my kids to feel pressured to learn American culture, Romanian culture, Nepali culture, or whatever other culture I'd end up with. So I'd rather it, because even for like lots of people, I've heard lots of people, for like when they go to Chinese school or they go to Vietnamese school, they're like, oh, I hate it. I don't like going. I don't like doing the homework. I don't like learning. The teachers are like this and that, like all kinds of things. And for me growing up, there was no Romanian school. We didn't have that blessing of Romanians decided we're going to make a school. There was at one point, it was very short. It disbanded very quickly. So, and there's no Nepali school. There's no Hindi learning school. So in terms of that, I think I'd want to just maybe start out my kid with just speaking to them in languages other than English. They're going to learn English eventually in school. They're going to have a teacher, an English learning language teacher that will say, okay, just like I did, I had one, my kids, maybe, I don't know. It's something that I have thought about, but not like in depth. How am I going to help them like integrate into these three different cultures, but not have it be something that's like burdening them, or they're gonna hate it and they're just gonna reject all of it. But I do hope that it will make them more culturally aware of things and diverse.
Well, I think the thing that you mentioned earlier about like it being like a new blend of cultures was like really nice to hear. It's like, I think that's like a really pretty like beautiful concept. It's just like, yeah, that's true. Like it doesn't have to be like such a hard thing to do where it's like, wait, are we American? Like, are we Asian enough? Are we American enough? It can just be like, well, we're accepting that we're both. So yeah, I thought what you said was really cool.
I think that's all we have for today, but again, just keep a lookout for any future episodes that we have coming out, and if you guys haven't yet, check out our other 2 episodes that we've released so far. And
you can check out our social media accounts. So our Facebook account, our Instagram account, and our YouTube account. Make sure you subscribe. Leave comments down below. Yeah. And we also we'll be providing links for all of these that you can click on. And we also have a new video project coming out called Behind the Food, where basically API food will be cooked. Our first episode will have Vietnamese food, so we have a Vietnamese individual, one of the people who is on the show with me, cooking a Vietnamese dish, and then he's talking about also what the meaning of the dish has to him, cultural meaning, personal meaning.
Super cool. All right.
Sweet.
Thank you for
Thank
watching.
you.
Bye.
Let it be acknowledged that Oregon State University in Corvallis, Oregon is located within the traditional homelands of the Marys River or Ampinafu Band of Kalapuya.
following the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855, Kalapuya people were forcibly removed to reservations in western Oregon.
Today, living descendants of these people are a part of the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederate Tribes of the Siletz Indians. The host of this podcast includes paid student employees from the Asian and Pacific Cultural Center. However, all views expressed in this podcast are solely of those of the speaker and do not necessarily represent the opinions of the Asian and Pacific Cultural Center or Oregon State University. This podcast was not subject to prior review or approval of professional staff.